Talking about malicious and bad faith culture wars, let's go on to the women being oppressed by taking the knee. So this is the first article here, in which you have the news which, after the defeat of the England team, wokeism had to look for something else to poison, so they went to the Olympics, because why not? So Olympics team, GB women's soccer team, what do you call it, soccer, take the knee at the Tokyo game. So they're going to take the knee there. And I guess just why not? Just why not, ladies? Just try and try again every time wokeism is losing. Just keep poisoning everything until there's nothing left.
I think that's wonderful. I really hope that they lost badly.
Yeah, I don't know about the GB team, but the US team played a game which got a lot of coverage recently, and if we go to the next image, we can see basically a summary of how this went. Look.
They didn't play against the Swedish teenage boys team, did they?
No, the US essentially kicked a ball into their own face and then cried about it. So if we go to the next one, so you can see these are the results.
I saw the kick.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't get me wrong, that looks rough. I wouldn't have enjoyed that either.
But it's a summary of how this went. So if we go to the next one, this is the results. As you can see, posting this.
Yeah.
US women's soccer team takes the knee, goes on to lose 3-0 in the Olympic event to Sweden. And you can see there an image of them where, let's say, 80% of the team are taking the knee, and they've all got written across their chests, which is just really gauche. I don't know how else to put it. Black Lives Matter with red and blue, and it's like even from a left perspective, if you thought that was good, it just looks bad. And you got 3 members standing up there. And,
wow. So just like the UK football team, the Black Lives Matter team lost.
Yeah, but also the embarrassment. I mean, just the pure cringe out of all of this. There's also the captain of the team there, the one with the purple hair. So, I mean, that's always fitting, isn't it? So, let's go on to the next one, in which you have the Babylon Bee talking about this. I thought I'd just throw in some fake news because it sounds like real news at this point. So, the Babylon Bee, a fake news outlet, wrote this: inspiring US women's soccer team to boycott scoring goals until racism is defeated.
Thank you for your service.
And they have some fake quotes in here in which the captain is saying, this isn't the time to score goals when America is still racist. Also, I demand a hefty raise.
But how is that even a joke? That's probably literally what they're thinking.
I know, right? But that's the thing. It's like, I read the Babylon Bee as for good fun, and half the time I'm just like, you know what? That actually sounds like you probably said it.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, of course, because the satire comes from reality. The reality is, okay, so before all the Swedish watchers of this start going, ja, Sverige, and just being happy and whatnot, both teams support Chauvin. So let's go to the next link. Anyone takes the knee as a support of Chauvin. I mean, I don't know what else you're doing it for. So you can see there the Swedish and the US team taking the knee because...
Cringe.
Ja, Sverige.
I'm amazed that we are the ones in, the Swedes weren't way ahead of us on this, to be honest.
I love how it's also like the women proletariat rising up, because it's being like, well, the question here is, of course, that, wow, this is about the wage gap.
Oh, of course it is. Why not?
Because remember, it's the American team. You remember the American team? So there's a more comic mockery of this. We go to the next one. I love this. The comic someone made.
G-Prime, yeah.
Her taking the knee, and then the Swedish team scoring, because why wouldn't you? And then she's like, I deserve more money.
I love George's facial expressions. He captures the smugness perfectly. Yeah. I mean, look at that smug face. I deserve more money. Yeah, that's exactly what they're like.
It's not just the Anglos who are embarrassing themselves. Of course, you've got the Swedes there, but if you go to the next link, we can see them calling this, AP calling this, soccer players kneel to start a new era of Olympic activism, which sort of tells you that you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
Because why? Like, why do you have to poison everything you touch? But they say in here, the referee blew his whistle, talking about the British game. The British players glanced at one another as they dropped to their knees. Their Chilean counterparts responded in kind, all taking the knee. And I'm just wondering if the Chileans were looking at each other like, is Gusto Pinochet coming back or something? Like, we better just do it. Otherwise, I don't know what's going to happen. Because like the game starts and just like the entire opposition team kneels.
Furiously looking around for a man in a cloak.
What are the Anglos doing this time? So an hour later, it was the American and Swedish players in Tokyo taking part in Wednesday in United Unprecedented Gestures Against Racism. Yes, shut up. I'm sick of people talking about, BLM is just against racism. Also, we support Fidel Castro and his fight against the evil proletariat.
Also, abolish the family and abolish the police. This is going to go great. Also, reparations. Also, we're going to burn down your town. Also, like, it just continues, doesn't it? Like, anyway, sorry, go on.
This is all about fighting racism.
Yeah, sorry, what were we talking about now? Racism?
We need a socialist dictatorship to fight racism. What's got to do with racism? What are you talking about? Anyway, they continue, and also the final women's soccer game of the day saw Australia's players pose with an Indigenous flag and link arms before kickoff while the New Zealand counterparts knelt. Just the Anglos. Every Anglo except the Canadians so far has embarrassed themselves.
So the Canadians will not be far behind.
Yeah, that's
Justin
not getting
Trudeau will
hopes up.
turn up in blackface, taking the knee for everyone. Like, it's just inevitable.
Blackface against racism, the Canadian way. Oh god,
The Trudeau way.
yeah. So
I love that he couldn't tell people how many times he'd done blackface as well. Don't know, just
lost
loads.
count, mate.
Yeah.
So they say the practice of activism at the Olympics was long restricted by the International Olympic Committee. Such protests were within limited parameters, and now they've been allowed to take part. So if we go to the next one, this is the link in which the IOC changed their rules because, well, I want to be on the right side of history, don't you? Which is socialism. I'm like, right, okay. So they say the latest guidance appears to let athletes also copy the iconic Black Power raised fist gesture.
Oh, good. So racial nationalism at the Tokyo Olympics. Wonderful.
Looking forward to it. That's what the Olympics is all about, folks. But there was some base stuff because, of course,
literally a supremacist gesture.
it's in Japan and the Japanese don't stand for any of this nonsense. So the Japanese authorities have apparently banned the teams
based.
from posting this stuff on social media in an effort to try and dampen the nonsense because Japan still has standards, professional standards.
Yeah.
They're not entirely political activists.
They're not communists.
Yeah. So there's that. But you remember I mentioned about the fact that this is also about the wage gap. This is definitely about the wage gap.
Oh, yeah.
Don't know what that's got to do with it, but here's the enlightenment, which is, you remember they did a segment about this on The Daily Show ages ago,
Yeah.
which Gavin McGuinness was edited deceitfully.
Yes.
And then he just put out the full footage and was like, you guys are a bunch of morons.
Yeah.
And they were arguing in there that the American team score more goals than the male American team. Therefore, we get more money, right? And it's like, not if no one watches. Because it's the female team. And let's be frank, women weaker than men.
And you don't get paid by the goal? Because, I mean, if you were, then the under-15 teams are going to be getting loads of money when they play against the women's teams. Sorry, it's
Stacks
true.
of cash.
It's true.
Yeah, so there's also a more recent clip in 2019 in which they played against Thailand and also were very unsportsmanlike, and The Daily Show did more cope for this.
Oh, the patriarchy was oppressing women by restricting the number of goals.
She
they
says
got.
in here, our women were not playing against Thailand, they were playing against the patriarchy. Let's play the clip.
No, this has nothing to do with them. Our women weren't playing against Thailand. They were playing against the patriarchy. That's what this game was really about.
Well, last time I checked, the patriarchy wasn't made up of 13 Thai women.
No. I'm talking about this.
28 players are suing their employer, the U.S. Soccer Federation, alleging institutionalized gender discrimination.
According to their lawsuit, the women's team earns just 38% of a male player for the same kind of work.
The women scored more goals in one match than the men's team has scored in every World Cup appearance since 2006 combined.
Oh,
Great little audience.
See
Yeah.
that? The women's soccer team is doing so much more and getting paid so much less than the men's team. It's like finding out that Tony Stark got paid less than Hawkeye. One's a superhero, the other's a dad who's into archery.
And the women's team is Hawkeye. That's what's going on there.
why would they make this argument?
I don't know. It's so stupid. I don't know how much alcohol they give their audience either, because there's no way you'd fall for that unless you were drunk.
Well, it's just so ridiculous. Okay, but if a third of the people are watching your games, the money is made up of ticket sales? Why do I have to say that?
Why would it be made up of goals?
Yeah, why?
What? Like, if you
What?
play North Korea and score 10 goals, you need more money. And then if you're Spain playing, I don't know, France and beating France.
But if it's paid by the goal, then why wouldn't each team just go like, we're just going to let them in?
Yeah.
We're all going to come out of this loaded. It's like, oh god, we need to pay the team. There's literally billions on either side. Well, I'm sorry, we just didn't take that much in ticket sales. Ticket sales? You know, what's that got to do with how much money we get? It's ridiculous.
But when you put ball in net, money print.
yeah, it's like, what?
Stupidest of stupid arguments. And they made it back when they interviewed Gavin.
Yeah.
And it was really dumb then. And they just continued. Like, even though everyone's just like, are you guys actual morons? Like, no, they're still making segments in which they're like, they're fighting against the wage gap. Man, they're being disrespected by how much they're being paid as the women's soccer team that are trash anyway. But
Well, I mean,
they lost to Sweden.
yeah,
So
they lost 3-0 as well, so not exactly a close loss.
so they deserve to go home with no money, and Sweden deserves to go home with 3 bonuses each.
I guess so, yeah. I guess
how
that's
that
how it works, yeah. So the US women's soccer team's out of luck this time.
Hand your salaries over to the Swedes, and well done.
Have you tried hiring people who identify as women for the women's soccer team?
I'll leave that there. Anyway, I just wanted to show this picture in more detail. Like, just look at that. I can't get over this picture. I just these privileged children who are like, yeah, I'm going to stand up to racism. It's the most basic B kind of standard ever. I mean, it's remember Tanamongu and iDubbbz? Remember that?
Yeah.
And Tanamongu's like, yeah, I want to spread the message of being against racism. That's it. These people are just Tanamongu level of stupid.
Wow.
Because they're just like, oh, I'm against racism, therefore I'm a good person. What else are you against? I'm against eating feces. Oh, yeah, I mean, give them the Nobel Prize right now. Anyway, but if you want to talk about actual bigotry and tribalism, I decided to watch Winston's stream about South Africa, which was very enlightening, and I'd recommend everyone go and give it a watch. Winston, if people don't know, he was born and raised in South Africa, moved to China, has a very unique perspective on racism, let's say, of dealing with those two places. And he gave a pretty good summation of why these people are trash, and I can't put it better than him, so I'm going to let him say.
My daughter's half Chinese. She is playing with kids over there. Mexican, black, Korean, Puerto Rican, white, and God knows what else. Everything you can think of, like a big mix. And there's no hatred, there's no weirdness, there's no racism, there's no bull. It's safe. This is America. Everyone in America is f***ing deluded. They think it's the most racist country in the world. You don't know what real racism is. If you grew up in South Africa, if you lived in China, any of these places that I've spent great periods of my life in, you would know what real racism is. You can go on and on about your systemic racism. You can go on and on about things that you perceive as having hurt your feelings. But you know what? I'd rather have hurt feelings any day of the week and allow my daughter to grow up in a society where her f***ing race is not the most important thing about her. America and other developed countries have it right. And you f***ing spoiled, arrogant pricks who grew up in this kind of situation, in this kind of country, who go around trying to tell me that America is racist? You guys can go f*** yourselves, okay? I'm sorry to be so blunt, and, you know, I understand that there are issues that need to be addressed. You have to understand that it's nothing in comparison to real racism, in comparison to real bullshit that your average South African has to put up with. Anyone who's not Chinese who moves to China has to put up with. Racism sucks and it's bad in all forms, but you do not understand what it is unless you have actually experienced the real thing. And this kind of shit that first worlders complain about all the time really boils my blood because it's petty.
Yeah, well put. I don't know if you know anything about Winston. I don't know if you watch his stuff. He's usually extremely calm, extremely measured. That was a very off-the-cuff moment for him.
Right.
And that was the point where he's talking about people being killed in South Africa because of their skin tone or they're the wrong tribal group. And the riots being very tribal as well. I don't understand them fully, but he does, and he's laid it out. And it's like, right, there's that, in which, you know, let's kill you because you're the wrong race or the wrong tribe. And then he goes over to China and you've got, you know, McDonald's saying no blacks in this McDonald's, for example. And then he checks on his phone, what's the West up to? Because he's had to leave China now, goes to the West. Black Lives Matter. Why? Institutional racism I can't point to.
Yeah.
The West is cancer, man. Like, it's actual cancer if we decide to embrace this stuff and make it mainstream.
Oh, I agree. And I think he makes a great point about, like, the kids don't care. They don't. I mean, my son's got lots of friends he doesn't realise aren't European, obviously, because he doesn't really have that kind of conception yet. And, you know, so he's just talking about, like, all of his friends, and he... like, the last thing I want to have happen is to have them suddenly, you know, gain this, like, weird racial consciousness.
Like Kimberly Crenshaw and all the
exactly. So his friends are then like, oh, no, you're oppressing me because you're white and we're not. That'd be awful. So at the moment, they're just a bunch of kids having fun with each other, and it's really wholesome, and so it's just like, yeah, no.
Yeah. I think it's a particularly valid point, though. I know people might feel a bit weird about using kids as an example, but it's like that meme where you have the little Japanese girl and be like, make her apologize to Pearl Harbor. Why? The hell does she have to do with it? No, and then you take these little white kids and you're like, yeah, we need to give them race consciousness so they know that they're evil, and the brown kids in the room know that they're inferior. People are scum.
If you enjoyed this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full broadcast live every weekday at 1 p.m. UK time on lotuseaters.com.